Wolfe and Brennan in the morning.
And we're back to review the second episode of Season 1 of Community Spanish 101. I'm Wolfe, and I'm joined with Brennan as always.
Hello there.
General Kenobi. We're nerds, if you didn't catch the first episode. Before we get into Spanish 101, I wanted to actually share a note that I found while editing our first episode, actually. So, I've noticed that most TV shows have an A plot and a B plot in each episode, but the pilot, Jeff is at the center of both the A and B plot, which usually, that's not the case. You don't have one character being the center of both plots.
Yeah, it was very interesting. They did a very good job of making that. It felt natural. A lot of shows, they don't take that approach, which is really cool to see. And they did a fantastic job executing it.
Yeah, it felt natural, and I mean, they interweaved nicely. The A and B plots interweave nicely, especially since Jeff was literally moving back and forth between one objective and the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. So why don't we get into our favorite segment, Old White Man Does.
Yes. Okay, so in this episode, there is a clip where Annie says she has seen the look of dementia, and today she saw it again. Since that was in this episode, today's Old White Man Does has to do with a resident who had dementia. So this resident, when their dog passed, their solution was to flush all of the remaining dog food down the toilet. And if you know anything about the porous, water absorption qualities of dog food, rice, stuff like that, you don't put that down the drain.
No.
Because if it gets caught and catches and, becomes a clog, the pressure from the, in this case, dog food expanding, actually burst all of her plumbing in her house.
No.
So, yeah, that was luckily that was before I started at where I work.
Oh, thank goodness.
So this is just a story I have heard, so I did not have to deal with that, luckily.
That's good. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would hate to deal with that.
Yeah, it's would have been awful.
Yeah.
All right, and that's the Old White Man Does segment for this episode.
Yeah.
And now
we'll get into the pilot. Not the pilot, we did the pilot last week. We'll get into
Season 1, Episode 2, Spanish 101.
Yes, and before I give our recap of this episode, I want to highlight something I found in the commentary. And actually, before we started recording, Brennan told me about this too. But during the commentary for Spanish 101, they had Joe Russo, Joel McHale, Dan Harmon, and Chevy Chase. And while they were doing the commentary, Chevy kept getting confused as to what they were doing. He's like, why are we talking over the episode while it's playing? And they had to keep explaining to him, they had to tell him what a commentary was while they were recording. So if you go and watch the commentary for Spanish 101, you can hear them explaining it. Okay, so what we're doing is a commentary. This is for people who might be interested in learning more about the show.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that, halfway through the episode, they realized that Chevy's playthrough was 30, 50 seconds ahead of everyone else's. So he was talking about things in the episode that hadn't happened yet on the screen that we're seeing, which is also a very old white man moment.
Yes. It just proves that Chevy Chase is Pierce Hawthorne.
Yes. As much as he probably would not enjoy that.
No, but he is. He plays the character well, and it's partially because I think he is the character in real life.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and give the recap before we get into our notes. So, Spanish 101, this is when the Spanish class is assigned a partner presentation project where they must have conversations in Spanish. And this is when Jeff switches cards so he can be partnered with Britta, since, yes, he is still trying to get in her pants, but Britta reveals her card was also switched, making Jeff and Pierce partners instead, which we all know that Jeff is not a big fan of that.
Absolutely not.
And while they spend an evening cranking out this project, Annie and Shirley are inspired by Britta's knowledge of political issues and put on a protest for the treatment of Guatemalan journalists. Which, this protest is done in very poor taste in some ways. And I'm also just gonna pause real quick just to say, my cat is in the room with me, so if you hear, a bell ringing in the background, that's her. I'll try to remove as much as I can in editing, but in case it doesn't get cut out, that's what that is. Life with animals. But anyway, the protest is done in very poor taste. The protest is done in poor taste. And after hours of little meaningful progress with their assignment, Jeff and Pierce's assignment, Jeff storms out of the library to go protest and impress Britta with his participation in the protest. And Pierce gets drunk because he brought whiskey to their evening of assignment doing. And he ended up on the front page of the news because his arm caught on fire. And the professor of the Spanish class, Señor Ben Chang, who made his debut in this episode, had Pierce present by himself, but Jeff decides to be selfless and help Pierce do the presentation together. And of course they both fail it because they did not actually say any of the dialogue options that Señor Chang gave them for the assignment.
They did everything but that.
Exactly. But there is a glimmer of hope for Jeff and Britta coupling up, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
She shows some signs of warming up to him at the end. She kind of grabs his shirt collar. Mm-hmm. As she's walking away, she looks back. And also in this episode, we get Community's first end tag, which is the iconic 101 rap from Troy and Abed.
Yes. I've got that on my Spotify playlist.
Nice.
So it's a great rap. And I don't like rap music, but that clip makes me laugh every time.
Yes, it's such a good one.
All right. So we finished the Old White Man Says. We finished the recap. Do we want to go into general trivia?
Yeah, let's do. Well, we can go into what we thought of the episode.
Or go into the funny moments.
So.
Yes.
Jeff is still a douche.
Yes, very much so. Although he's starting to get better.
That's true. He is starting to soften up.
Yeah, but he's still an absolute idiot.
Yeah.
Someone I would absolutely hate to be around.
Which is funny because everyone is loving him being in the study group except for Britta, but everyone else is yay, Jeff, we gotta wait for Jeff. And he's exploiting that and basically using the study group to leech. To leech off of them and exploit them. And only one person recognizes that, and it's Britta.
Yep. And when he a great moment of him using the study group is when I believe it's this episode, if not we can just cut it out. But when he opens his notebook or his empty 3-ring binder and tells Annie, "You got any Spanish notes that might fit in there?"
Yep, that was this episode.
Yeah. Okay, I thought so. I'm doing a separate rewatch with my friend group, so
oh yeah, that's right.
Things are kind of getting mixed up. But yeah, so it shows how he's just using them for their gifts and talents, whereas his gift is using people.
Yep. And even before that too, he literally steals someone else's faculty parking tag just so he can park closer.
Yep. And even though he's parked super close, the way Abed offered to bring his car around means that he's done that before.
Yep. I wonder how many times
even
that's
though
happened.
He's already super close, he still has Abed go and bring it around for him.
Yep. Just like Jeff is still a douche, Abed is still meta.
Yes, Abed is an amazing character. He does such a great job.
He does. And even ruins the TV aspect of their lives that he talked about at the beginning of the episode by being meta.
Yep. He just goes, until someone says we're on TV, there, it's gone.
Yep.
Just the sadness in his voice when he goes, it's gone.
Yes.
It's very well done.
I agree. Another moment and this is more of a funny joke that I liked, and Pierce misunderstanding the word tardiness.
That.
Saying, don't use that word around Abed.
That one, and mispronouncing Abed's name as well.
He still does that.
Which he never stops that, I don't think.
He won't.
Yeah, I don't think he ever does. He always mispronounces it.
Yep. And see, I'm not one who really likes our slur jokes that much. I think that word's outdated. Just stop using it as an insult. Just stop using it. But I think in this case it works really well and is hilarious because they're not saying it, but the character's confusing one word for another, which I think is the humor behind it.
Yeah.
And they're not making fun of anyone who would be considered that back when they used it.
It's like Michael Scott's quote. You don't call a retarded person retarded. It's bad taste. You call your friends retarded when they're being retarded.
Right.
It's that kind of it's not it's not meant as a slur. It's not meant as offensive. It's making fun of your friends.
Yeah, and it's more so making fun of Pierce's intelligence.
Yes, exactly. And in this case, it's better because Pierce doesn't even know what he's saying.
No, he thinks he's saying it, but he's like
Yes.
instead they're talking about tardiness, like being late. And then even later when he's like, "No offense, Abed," or "No offense, Abed."
Yeah, and he reaches his hand out, and Abed tries to reach out and looks confused. And great.
Yeah, because Pierce just like pulls back before he can reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get some
right.
interesting Britta moments too, I think.
Yeah, it's very different than who she, like, it kind of starts to show her, what's the word?
Like true self or
Activist side.
Oh yeah.
Where she's realizing she is just an activist from what her perception of the status that comes with being an activist.
Yeah.
Whereas she doesn't do anything, even though she thinks she does.
Yeah, and like Shirley even calls her out on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and she does... Sorry, my brain just died. All right, well, let's move on from that, because my brain is not going to remember that right now.
Well, like, in this episode, we also got, like, whenever, like, you were a kid and your parents were like, oh, you got to finish your food, there are children starving in Africa. We had the first of those moments with Britta in this episode, with her talking about journalists being killed in Guatemala while everyone is kissing ass to Jeff.
Yep, yeah.
So, and if you haven't seen past Spanish 101, that is a spoiler, there will be more of those moments.
A lot more of those moments, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that it does kind of show more of her character just kind of being like bringing up these like political issues when sometimes it's inappropriate. Like, I think there might be a couple times where it's topical, but most of the time it's like not relevant or it's like not really like right for the setting in that moment.
Yeah.
And it especially, I don't think it like, I mean, it's funny because it doesn't fit, but I don't think it fits here. Like in real life,
I think they're still trying to figure out her character at this point.
Yeah.
And I mean, the actress is doing a great job of portraying Britta already.
Yes.
But I think they're still trying to figure out what her motivation is.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah. But
they know politics is going to be a big part of it, but they don't know how yet.
Right. But I think at the same time they do, because we already know that like in this episode they establish, oh, she brings up these issues at the wrong time, which is part of her character, and I think was smart of them to do that. Even though like in real life, I don't think anyone would ever say like there are people getting killed in Guatemala in response to like people kissing ass to someone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I don't think that would happen.
Yeah, but I think like it works in this moment because it shows more about Britta.
It does.
And also when I think it's Annie who says this, but she tells Britta, you'd rather keep it real than be likable, which I think is Britta in a nutshell.
Absolutely. Yes.
And it becomes even more apparent as the show goes on. I mean, like, we all know, like, not we all know, but we know that, like, they use Britta as a verb to mean make a tiny mistake or really fuck something up is the more accurate phrasing.
Yeah. Yeah, when how do they say? They Britted that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course, like, so we do get a lot of like establishing Britta's character in this episode, even though they're still figuring it out. There's some things that they lay out like this early on that actually stay true later on, which I think is really impressive. Mm-hmm. And again, like we said, like Shirley calls Britta out on her fake activism, and basically for the rest of the show, the rest of the characters don't respect her as an activist at all.
Oh, absolutely not. No, they don't. I believe there are several occasions where they make fun of her for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like groan at her, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they whenever she brings up politics, they all groan or...
Yeah.
Which honestly is understandable.
Yeah. But it's funny because like at one point I think like Annie's response to one of those is like, pay your rent, Britta.
I do, yeah. She does.
Yeah, like at first it seems like it's inspiring to Shirley and Annie to like, and they want to go and do this protest, which, can we talk about that for a second? Because that is just, oh my gosh, that protest is, it's so bad. I mean, it's hilarious. Like, it's hilarious. I think they did it. They
Yes.
executed it well. But, like, if you were to see that protest in real life, oh, gosh.
It seems more like a party than it does a protest.
Or, like, a student event, because they're giving out brownies. They have T-shirts. They have a piñata, which is probably the worst part of it.
When they mentioned the piñata based off of whoever the journalist, I forget what his name was.
I don't remember.
They had a piñata of him, and Britta goes, "You realize he was beaten to death, right?" And that's when Annie goes, "That's where we got the idea from."
That's like, what? How do you... Annie, you're smarter than that.
It is awful, yet hilarious. And,
yes.
Then after that, it cuts straight to Starburns with a DJ set up. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it had who we will later know to be Magnitude, right? Dancing?
Maybe. I didn't catch that.
I think it was Magnitude dancing.
Huh.
And Britta goes over and shuts it all down and is like, what are you doing? And, yeah.
No, I think it's funny, like, it's hilarious because it's awful.
Yes.
It's just like we talked about last week. Like, it's not meant to, like, say these things are okay to do or say. It's just, like, it's funny because you would not see this in real life. No sane person would be doing these things.
No, absolutely not. But, like, that's one of the things I love about this show. It came before the politically correct movement, so they could get away with things that people understood to be jokes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Family Guy still does that, actually.
Well, like, there are certain shows nowadays that there's certain like South Park and Family Guy, you expect that from those shows.
Yeah.
Because they've been doing it for so long. But,
yeah.
like, a lot of TV shows nowadays, the new ones as they're coming out or being written now, they're so scared of making jokes that are potentially offensive, whereas that's the point of jokes, is to make fun of something.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's...
I've never understood the cancel culture and all that, and it's not meant in bad taste. Like, that's what's great about this show. It's making fun of these things because it's not realistic.
Right. And,
but yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, there's definitely still, like, shows that are doing that. I think they're taking different approaches than Community took. Like, if I can bring up Animal Control for a second, which actually stars Joel McHale as well. And, like, I think a lot of Community fans have hopped aboard the Animal Control wagon because of that. And they do have, like, in the show, they have a competition between Joel's character and another character. Like, the two of them who are Animal Control agents have, like, a competition to see who can get with the hot vet. So, like, there's still shows that are, like, doing this stuff that's kind of like they're having their characters still do douchey things. Like, it's just not as common now. And I think adult cartoons are definitely still doing it. Like, those are, even the new ones are still doing that, I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
I think it's
like Rick and Morty is wonderful, but it's out there.
Yeah, I think it's because, like,
some of the jokes they make.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, like, kind of stuck with adult cartoons, but maybe left, like real life not real life shows, but, like, the live action ones. Like, it's still huge. Like, this kind of humor is huge in adult cartoons, but I think it isn't as prevalent in live action, and I do understand why. And I don't think, like, cancel culture's completely, like, gotten rid of it. And there's still some things that fly, but there's other things that, like, and I don't even know if, like, people are actually canceling these episodes or not. Like, with we'll get into the D&D episode when we get into the D&D episode, but that episode was not available on Netflix or Hulu because there's a character who wears...
It's only available on a DVD.
Yeah, well, I think it's on Peacock, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'll check. Let me see.
Yeah, I think I saw someone on Reddit saying that it was on Peacock, but they removed this episode from Netflix and Hulu because there's a character who is wearing black face paint all over his face. And out of context, it does sound bad. Like, blackface is not a good thing to do, but the show addresses that, and the joke isn't that, like, the joke is that this character's doing this thing that is racist, but they have no idea that's what people think it is, because they're portraying themselves as a dark elf, a drow from D&D.
It is. It's on Peacock.
Excellent. So if you haven't seen the D&D episode and you want to, you can go to Peacock, or you could buy the DVD collection.
Yep. So, like, I personally have not seen that episode, and I'm waiting until we get to that point for our podcast. So that one episode will be my genuine first reaction to that episode.
That'll be awesome. I can't wait for that. Yeah. But yeah, so I don't remember anyone complaining about that episode, but it was Netflix and Hulu that made the decision to take that episode off.
Yeah.
So I don't think, like, I think cancel culture might be, like, blown out of proportion, and that networks and writers are more staying on the safe side, like, now because of some instances.
Yeah.
And, like, most people watching those shows aren't getting offended by it. Like, everyone actually was mad that they took that episode off of Netflix and Hulu, because it's one of the best community episodes out there. And they removed it for this bit that they acknowledge, like, in the show, they acknowledge, hey, blackface isn't okay.
Yeah. You're just getting me more and more excited for this.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, back to that protest, like, in the episode.
Yes.
One of the other things that I think makes it so, like, distasteful, like, gives a, like, actual protesters a bad name, is that moment when they go, we hate Guatemala. And they just repeat that over and over.
Yeah, and they're not saying, like, we hate what Guatemala is doing. It almost makes it seem like they just hate the country in general.
Yeah, like, they hate the country, they hate, like, the people, and, like, that's what I think makes it even funnier, too. It's like, they don't realize what they're doing. The entire protest is something that they don't even realize what they're doing. But even with that, Shirley's able to call Britta out and be like, oh, well, what are you doing? Then Britta's like, oh, nothing. And then she, like, helps out with the protest, even though she does push back with the piñata, but then she does end up participating.
There is a sign in the, like, the protest at the end, which... Oh,
the, like, silence vigil.
Yeah. So, like, when they have the actual protest part and not the party part, like the silent protest where they have tape over their mouth. I found it very ironic that the sign that Jeff paid the guy for, the sign said silence equals death, and they're having a silent protest.
That I understand a little more than the other stuff they did. Like, that one I could see, like, they're being silent to reflect what's happening to the Guatemalans. That I understand. That makes sense for a protest.
Yeah, it just made me laugh a little bit.
Yeah, it is ironic. I do agree.
Yeah.
But
the piñata,
the brownies, the shirts, like, all of that just shows how dense Shirley and Annie, or maybe not dense, but how politically unaware they are.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
It made me laugh, because the stereotype nowadays is the people getting offended on other people's behalfs and all that is the Karens, or the white women, you know? And what made me laugh was it was Shirley who was saying, like, we need to do this so I can get my brownies out and make brownies, and she was kind of spearheading it.
Yeah.
A bit more than Annie, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Which was just ironic.
Yeah.
That made me chuckle.
Yeah. Yeah, now that we've, like, talked about the protest for a bit, like, why don't we go back to... I don't know if it's the A plot or B plot. I assume it's the A plot, and that the protest is the B plot. That's my assumption, at least. But the A plot, let's go to where, like, after they've switched shirts, they've switched cards, and now Pierce and Jeff are stuck in a study room together. Or, more accurately, Jeff is stuck with Pierce.
Yes. So... one of the very, like, things that made me laugh really hard was when it shows, you know, when they're having, like, Pierce is doing that whole storyboard on the chalkboard.
Yeah.
If you pause it and read the chalkboard, that is one of the most confusing yet hilarious and borderline racist, which fits Pierce's character.
Yeah.
It's a storyboard I've ever seen.
Wait, I want to see the storyboard now.
So I wrote down what I could make out. So on the far left, there's a circle that just says thesis. And while we're talking about that circle... why did he draw a circle like that?
I don't know. Also, before you read this off, I'm on Google about to look up this storyboard.
Okay.
The first article I see is that Alison Brie confirms community movie script is finished.
Sweet.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Now this
6 seasons in a movie.
6 seasons in a movie.
Let's go.
Now this is April 10th, so this is going to be old news by the time our audience hears this.
Yes.
But I just thought that was exciting to share while I saw it. Anyway.
So on the far left, there's just a circle that has the word thesis in it, with an arrow pointing across the middle to another circle that just has the words Israel, Palestine, flag, and no. And then after that circle is a bracket that says Muslims, and then another bracket that says Pocahontas, with an arrow running back to the middle that has the word forgiveness.
Interesting. And that does kind of foreshadow their, like, little skit at the end, too.
Yeah, because they pull Annie out of the class seat, her seat, and tie her up and put a... She looks like a Pocahontas character.
Yeah.
Which is... It was cool that they connected those two things.
Yeah.
But it shows Pierce's borderline... actually, not borderline, racism.
Yeah.
At the second episode, it just shows that he is decently kind of racist.
Yeah. Yeah, that also reminds me how, like, Jeff is, like, strangely critical of Israel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is funny, like, Pierce was critical of... He was anti-Israel before it was cool.
Yes.
Because, like, I remember listening to the commentary, and at the time they were saying how, like, Pierce... They did that to make Pierce seem anti-Semitic. But nowadays it just makes Pierce seem sympathetic to Palestinians.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which... That's the one thing from Community that I know of that hasn't really, like, aged as well as others. But, I mean, like, it doesn't age terribly, I don't think.
Yeah. There's, like, I think another great moment of that little, like, segment is the Pierce explaining hypervirility.
Yes. Yes.
Which I looked it up because I was genuinely curious if that was an actual thing or not.
We're on the same wavelength. I did the same thing.
And according to Urban Dictionary, Urban Dictionary says it is a feigned, rare condition used by infertile men in the senile stage of their life. It is an assumed macho excuse for their many failed marriages and sterility, which they perceive others to view as unmanly. And then it said in the notes, first popularly used by Chevy Chase's character Pierce Hawthorne in Community.
Yes. And I mean, they nodded it being a fake thing when Jeff's like, I can't believe it, but you can, so that's fine.
Yep. I was like, okay, is this a real thing, or is like Jeff just like, this can't be real, and then it ends up being real? So I
didn't think it was real, but
it's not a real thing
because it does kind of come off as him like trying to make up for the fact that he's infertile.
Yeah,
but. Because you don't want to be seen as infertile. Like, if you're infertile, you're not a man, or whatever the stereotype is, or the belief. Which, like, if you are infertile, it's not true. Like, you're still a man if you're infertile. But and that if you want children and you're infertile, that really does suck. But if you're infertile and you don't want children, good for you, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Makes it easier.
Yeah, like, I do just want to say, like, I don't think that if you're infertile, you're less of a man, but Pierce clearly thinks that, and that's why he's like, like, I'm extra fertile, too fertile for women, basically, is what he's trying to say. Like, literally he's killing the eggs.
Overcompensating.
Yeah, overcompensating.
So, another really interesting thing during that segment was when Troy and Abed come in and complete their assignment in about 10 seconds, whereas Pierce and Jeff have been there for hours, it seems.
Yeah.
And Pierce is just going insane. After Troy and Abed do their conversation, they do a weird version of their iconic handshake.
That's true. They do just the one tap.
They don't tap their chest, I don't think. They just kind of smack their hands together.
Mm-hmm.
Which was a very it's kind of cool to see that grew into what it was.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Also, while we're on Troy and Abed bursting in, Abed still has Jeff's shirt on.
Did he?
He did. It was a little too big on him, but by this point, Jeff had changed into a different shirt, so he didn't have Abed's on anymore. So that means that Jeff had a spare shirt.
Yeah, didn't Pierce buy it? He offered to buy it.
I think he did offer to buy Abed's shirt.
Yeah, because then Jeff just looks up, super excited, and goes, "Yes."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember that now, But yeah, I think there is a joke later in the show that Jeff has a spare shirt in his locker. And I don't know if this is a foreshadowing to that joke or if that joke later on is a reference to this moment when he somehow has another shirt.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was foreshadowing. There's a lot of small jokes like that you don't catch.
That's true, and I will get into that when we do eventually get to trivia, but
yeah.
But yeah, that was an interesting moment, I thought. Jeff has spare shirts, and we learn another part about, or that adds to the vainness of his character.
Yeah.
Like, he values his appearance so much, he will keep clothes at school, or more accurately in his car, because I don't think he knew that he had a locker at this point.
Yeah. I don't think he does either.
Yeah. Also, right after Jeff leaves Pierce behind, I don't know if you saw this, but Pierce, when he grabs the whiskey glass, he kind of grabs it with, like, his hand in an upside-down U shape, ending up dipping his fingers into the whiskey.
I did notice that. I think in the commentary they mentioned that.
I must have spaced out during that part of the commentary, but...
Yeah. Because I think, like, was it Joe Russo that was making fun of him for doing that in the commentary, I think.
Yeah.
Which, for those of you who don't know, that some of the, like, main producers on the show were the Russo brothers, who are now responsible for most of the, if not all of the MCU.
Yeah, they've done, like, Winter Soldier, Civil War...
Infinity War, Endgame.
Yeah.
All the big ones.
Yeah, like, the really huge ones from the first few phases. Or at least the ones where, like, things were, like, starting to culminate together.
Yeah. That was the Russos.
And it's because of their work on Community that I think they got that.
Yeah.
And then they got people from Community to cameo in their movies. Like, I think they got Danny Pudi, they got...
Yvette Nicole Brown, who played Shirley.
Yes, they got her to be someone. They got Ken Jeong.
They got... Yeah, there's actually a podcast. I mentioned this last time. The podcast I listened to with Ken Jeong and Joel McHale. They had Yvette Nicole Brown on it. And they... So, Yvette... And why do I want to call him Chang?
He embodies Chang so well.
He does. But Ken and Yvette Ken was poking fun at how Yvette got to have a speaking role in an MCU movie.
And he didn't.
And yeah, because he was the janitor who caused Ant-Man to come out of the portal, or he was in that scene somewhere.
I think he was like a security guy looking at Ant-Man coming out of the portal, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Because the mouse is who got him out.
Yeah, he was the security guy in that area. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And I don't remember what movie Danny Pudi was in, but I know he cameoed as someone.
He was in Civil War.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because he was it's unclear if he was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent or Hydra agent, all that, like, there's a deleted scene where Captain America knocks him out, and then the actor was joking about how he was upset that was cut because he didn't get to be knocked out by Captain America.
Aw, yeah. I kind of hope they referenced that in the movie, because they referenced his cameo on Cougar Town in the show.
Yes. Yeah.
Or if they mentioned The Last Airbender as well, the live-action one.
Yes.
Since he's in that. It'd be so cool if they, like, mentioned his, like, other roles since then somehow.
Yeah, I think the Cougar Town one makes sense, I think.
It does, because...
I think it'd be hard to mix the actors' other jobs into the show.
That's true.
There's always been a joke with Cougar Town and Community.
Yeah, that's fair. Although they do mention the Marvel movies in Community, though, so that we know they exist in the universe. So it could be funny, like
when
the finale, they talk about like wanting to have an opinion on those boring ass Marvel movies. Their words, not mine.
Yeah. Yep.
And they mention them at least once before that too, but I think that could work. And like maybe Abed says something like, "Oh, like yeah, one of my first jobs out in Hollywood was as this background extra in Civil War." Some throwaway line like that.
That would be a really cool connection.
Yeah,
and that would work too.
And I don't think they could do it with Avatar, honestly, because that was a bigger role.
Yeah, I don't think they could do that either.
No, like it'd work for Civil War, I think, but. But yeah, that was funny. Like you mentioned, the Russos worked on Community, and then it got them to work on the MCU. And I honestly don't know what projects they've worked on since then, which is kind of bad, I think.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, so I think my final note in general is like, well, we talked about this already. Jeff is still a douche, but we do see him softening up. But the moment we see that is when Britta is like, yeah, I feel sorry for Pierce, and she's the only one in the study group that does. Everyone else is making fun of him, and then Britta just says, like, yeah, I feel sorry for him. Like, I think he's, like, an old man who's been selfish all his life and is just trying to have some shot at, like, some kind of family after all these years. And that kind of makes Jeff go, oh. And then I think that's the moment where Jeff decides, you know what, I actually am going to present with him.
Yeah, that was definitely, if not the moment, it was definitely a huge contributing factor to him deciding to present that with him.
Yes.
I want to see the uncut version of that skit,
That would be so funny.
but at the same time, I don't.
Yeah.
Like,
sometimes things are better left to speculation.
yeah, it's one of the, like, you know when you, like, drive past a car crash, and it's like, I shouldn't look, but I'm curious.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the curiosity of the macabre, I think it is.
Yeah, or like
that's kind of how I feel about that skit.
yeah, or like wanting to know the species like that Yoda is in Star Wars, but also not wanting to know because as soon as they reveal the name, like it's gonna ruin the mystery of it.
Yeah. I'm very curious as to what that skit would look like. Like I would pay money to be in that class because I'm someone who enjoys watching bad movies.
Yeah.
Like that would have been a lot of fun to watch that.
Agreed. And what's funny about like this moment of Jeff's character being softened a bit is that whenever his character is softened throughout the show, it's always members of the study group.
Yep.
Like they kind of like say things that make him kind of go, "Oh, okay," and they kind of like start to get him to think differently, which I think is actually a reflection of Dan Harmon in real life because you and I both know that he based the show off of his experiences in college.
Yeah.
And making a study group to try and grow closer to his girlfriend. I think they both enrolled in Spanish, so then he can make a study group they could study together. And then it kind of roped in other people that he said he would never like talk to normally because they didn't benefit his film career, but he had the best time with them, made great friends, and kind of like, I think like opened him up to other things. So I think this is kind of like that. Jeff is almost a reflection of Dan Harmon, but we also know that all the characters are a reflection of Dan Harmon in some way.
Yeah. Which is a really cool aspect of the show.
Yes.
And probably why they feel so real, because they're based off of a real person.
Yeah. I don't know. Did you have any other things to say about this episode?
I've just got some general trivia and funny moments left.
Okay, what are some of those funny moments?
Okay, so, like, the very first lines in this episode, the dean announcing corrections to the school catalog,
Oh, yeah.
will never fail to make me laugh. Cosmology should be cosmetology, astrology should be astronomy, and the students on the cover should be smiling.
Yeah, you think he's going to say another class, but instead he's
and
like...
then he goes straight to that, and whoever is growing a small patch of cannabis behind the gymnasium, congratulations, you have won a cruise. Report to security to claim your prize. And if I'm not mistaken, they actually follow through with that, and they see, like, later in the episode, there's a guy being walked out by the police in handcuffs.
Ooh, I'll have to go back and look for that.
I could be mistaken with that, because it's been a few days since I watched it last.
Oh, I watched it today.
Yeah, see, I watched it last night.
Yeah, but you don't have as much time between when you get home and when I do to, like, watch it.
I got home, and I ate my take-home dinner, and then I hopped immediately onto this podcast. So, yeah, like, I have to watch it the night before if I'm going to be able to watch it in preparation for this episode.
That makes sense.
So it's not going to be as fresh for me as it will be for Wolfe, for our viewers, or listeners.
Unfortunately, I didn't notice anyone being escorted out. And this would have been before weed was legalized in Colorado.
Yeah.
Because that was legalized... Oh, I don't remember.
I don't remember either. And then another...
2012, so...
Okay, yeah. Before that. Yeah.
Starting in 2014, sorry. Like, they started the vote in 2012, but then it became legal 2014, so...
Okay.
While this show was still on the air.
Yeah. And then it goes, like... It just keeps going with this little, like, just announcements train.
Yes.
Is... In order to create awareness of homelessness, security has been given binoculars. What is that? How does that help?
I was drinking water when you said that.
Like, how does that help?
I think it's meant to be, like, make people more aware of, like, homeless people, like, being where society doesn't want them to be.
But you get...
It's like, we gotta keep a lookout for the homeless people so we can kick them off.
It was just such a weird line.
It is, but I mean, the dean's announcements are always weird.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. If I had access to an intercom like that, I'd be making weird jokes and all these weird announcements too, just to bother people.
Yeah.
I'd be doing the same thing he does. It'd be hilarious.
Yeah, it'd be so tempting to just want to, like, say whatever you want into the intercom.
Yeah. Like, you have, like, okay, so for our listeners who didn't hear last episode, Wolf and I met working at a summer camp in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of times where I had to resist the temptation, because at one point I had lost my voice because my cabin was just so rowdy, I had to yell for them to hear me.
Yeah.
And so my boss's solution to that was to give me a megaphone that had a siren pre-programmed into it, so I could just click that button and the kids would know to listen. That way they could hear me. And then I could use the megaphone to talk so they could hear me.
Yeah.
The amount of times I had to resist just making a dumb joke through that megaphone so everyone could hear it. It got so difficult at times where I just had to, like, put the megaphone down.
I'm 90% sure I did when I got a hand on that megaphone. Like, I think probably when I was an area director, because I don't think they would have given it to me as a counselor.
Yeah.
But when I was, like, the position above counselor, which for our camp was area director, so... Because they kind of run the games and stuff at this camp, more so than the counselors.
Area directors are like the counselors to the counselors.
Yeah, especially if you had the two counselors that I had. But, I mean, I was also kind of a camper with them, so I was both their boss and their friend, which...
Yeah. Well, I mean, not to throw anyone under the bus, but I think the summer you were an area director, I was still a counselor, but I was the only person in my team who had any experience, including my area directors.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing a lot of their jobs because they didn't know how, or they just weren't aware as part of their job. Yeah, that was just a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm 90% sure I used that megaphone for stupid things. And, like, it was during games, and I kept it camp appropriate, but I definitely misused it.
That's why I had to put it down a lot of the times, because the joke that I popped into my head was not camp appropriate.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then a few other funny moments. Ben Chang's intro.
Oh my gosh, yes. I forgot to mention that.
So hilarious and so racist towards himself.
Yes.
It shows a small glimpse of how insane he becomes.
Yeah, literally in my notes, I have written down that his opening monologue is like a pilot episode for Chang, because he wasn't in the first episode.
Exactly.
But his monologue is literally just a pilot for what that character's gonna be.
Yeah.
And from what I heard in the commentary, they recorded Ken Jeong, like, doing that for like 45 minutes and then cut the best pieces together.
Like, I can't imagine. I don't think I would have been able to hold my laughter in that.
No, I wouldn't have either.
There's no way. Chang in this episode actually reminds me a lot of a professor I had in college.
Really?
Yeah, my psychology professor. So in Psych 101, the man was, I would say, certifiably insane.
Dang. So he's an example for the class.
Yeah. One day he came in wearing a headband and karate chopped a desk for no reason, like jumped, and this is like a 70-year-old man.
Yep, that's Chang. Your professor was Ben Chang.
Oh, that's not even the worst of it. His classroom was the only classroom in the entire university that still had chalkboards, because he refused to use anything else.
Yeah, that checks out for the 70-year-old professors.
When he would run out of room on the chalkboard, he'd just continue on the wall using chalk.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then, this was before my time, but this was like a legendary story among the students of this guy. So, the college I went to had required chapel 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And they had a speaker come in for a week and spoke Monday, Wednesday, Friday. On Monday, he spoke about the Imago Dei, the image of God, and how we're all created in the image of God and all that. My professor did not agree with what the man had said. So he sent out an email school-wide. So students, faculty, staff, everyone got this email.
Oh my gosh. Even the students that didn't know who he was?
Yeah. Like, he just, like, every single email in the school's records, he just sent this email to.
That's going out to alumni too, then.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I believe it went to alumni. I'm not for certain on that, but I believe it did. And it just was like tearing into the speaker. And at the end, he cited a Bible verse. I forget which one, but the verse is something along the lines of, when the false prophet speaks, the true prophet shall blow his trumpet. And the next chapel period, he walked in holding a trumpet and stood on the balcony with it to his lips until security escorted him out.
Oh, how is he still he's got to have tenure. That's how he's still employed.
He has tenure. Yeah.
They can't fire him for that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, he's he's
Chang
calling
as a
himself the
professor.
true prophet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I had Chang as a professor. So
Man, that would be hilarious.
it was 8 a.m. Tuesday, Thursday for an hour and a half.
Ooh.
And there were two other guys on my floor that were in that class. One of the guys took it extremely seriously, extremely into psychology and all that. And then me and the other dude just sat in the back laughing at the professor. It was just... I can't tell you a thing I learned in that class except that he believed that aliens built the pyramids and we call them angels because they came from the heavens, and that's where Christianity comes from.
Huh.
So...
That's really bizarre.
Yeah, he was a true Chang. It was wild.
Oh man, I need to ask my first roommate at college about that, because I think I've told you.
Yeah,
but
he would have known.
Yeah, he went to the same college that you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll text you this professor's name when we're done.
Okay, that sounds good, and then I'll ask him about it. But yeah, he did get kicked out for poor grades though, so I don't know if he would have had psychology or not with this professor.
It's a requirement. It's Psych 101.
So
it's
he
like,
probably
Gen
took
Ed.
it. Yeah, so he probably would have taken it his first or second semester there, but
Yeah.
I know that he got kicked out for bad grades, but he also hated that school, so
Yeah.
that's fair.
Few other little moments. Like I mentioned before, the quote by Annie, "I've seen the face of dementia, and last night I saw it again." Jeff saying, "This is my chance to show her that I care enough to act like I care about it." That was a funny line.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've been in a group project in school and dreamed about blowing up like Jeff did.
Yes.
Yeah. When Chang gives Jeff and Pierce their grade, he goes F minus, and then Chevy responds with, "What? Did you say S?" That was actually Chevy improving.
Was it?
Yeah, they mentioned that in the commentary as well. And this is the first episode with the full theme song. And on top of that,
Yes.
it is the only episode that aired where on the origami thing on the intro, it's the only one where Chevy Chase's name is accompanied by a crude drawing of boobs.
Yep.
And then Jeff's cup says "Yummy Tummy Stop and Go." And that's...
What?
Yeah, the actor, Joel McHale, was working with, the prop department to make that or something. I just remember hearing that in the commentary. But yeah.
That's funny.
So that's all the general trivia I have.
Yeah. What's funny is whenever I was doing the trivia, and I actually had that piece too with Chevy Chase's card, whenever I looked it up on IMDb, they said that that Netflix censored it. And I'm like, well, that can't be right.
They censored what?
Because Hulu has they censored the title card and had it be disembodied lips and body parts in later episodes. And I was like, well, that can't be right. And then when I listened to the commentary, they were talking about how the network airing community was the one that censored it. Yeah. I'm like, that makes sense. That makes more sense because they still use that original title card on the Hulu and Netflix versions. It's on the DVD version. And then on any version after that, they use the edited version, the one that doesn't have the naked woman.
Yeah. I mean, it's not clear that that's what it is either. It's a very crude shape.
Until you know what it is.
You don't know what it is until you know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a blink and you miss it thing too.
Yeah.
But anyway, with more trivia, so I did check the community wiki last time. However, it was a bit trash for this episode. The trivia was awful. There's some pieces of trivia from that I'm not even going to bother sharing because that's not trivia. And this one's actually hardly a piece of trivia. How the fortune teller intro, that's the first time the full intro shows, and that's the first time the theme song plays for Community. I'm like, that's hardly trivia.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. And anyone watching the show would recognize that. What I think is more of a piece of trivia is that Chang's cards have the Italian flag on the back of them instead of the Mexican one. And this could be hinting that spoilers, Chang is not a Spanish genius.
Yeah.
But there is also the possibility that the flag could just be the Mexican flag without the coat of arms in the center, since both flags for Italy and Mexico consist of a red, white, and green stripe. Or green, white, red. Like vertical stripes. Like they look identical besides the coat of arms on Mexico. So it could be that, but it is also possible that it alludes to Chang maybe being a little less legitimate than he seems. Also, like we mentioned last time, like in the pilot we saw the pairing of Troy and Pierce, which was Dan Harmon's original plan for the show. But actually, after seeing Donald Glover and Danny Pudi improvise a rap in front of a journalist on the red carpet, he decided to pair them together for this end tag of this episode, and then inevitably future episodes and future end tags.
Yes. And, like, the chemistry between Danny Pudi and Donald Glover is just insane.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have such good chemistry together.
They do.
Another piece of trivia I have, and this is the last one I have, that Jeff's entrance in the opening sequence, whenever he enters the study room, is actually an homage to the Fonz from Happy Days. So, like, Henry Winkler's character, who you might know from Parks and Rec if you've seen it. I don't know if you have, Brennan.
Yeah, who is he in Parks and Rec?
He was John Ralphio's dad.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And I think he makes a lot of cameos and, like, has, like, small roles in a lot of other things. Yeah, his character, the Fonz, like, would do the thing and do that stance that Jeff did. Like, Jeff's entrance is just being the Fonz. So that's just, like, an homage to that character I had, like, in the trivia.
Nice.
Any final comments before we go?
I think that's it for me. We still gotta rate on the Meow Meow Bean scale.
The Meow Meow Bean scale, yes. I can't believe I forgot about that.
So, personally, I think I would rate this a 3 out of 5 as well.
I agree, yeah.
Because, like, it's a good one, but there's so much better ahead.
Yes.
And, like, this doesn't deserve a 2, definitely doesn't deserve a 1, but it's still kind of moving everything into place.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely, like, moving a little quicker than most sitcoms, which I do like, that they're not wasting any time with it, but we're not getting to, like, the real shenanigans until later.
Oh, absolutely
and actually, in my opinion, I think I actually like the pilot more than this episode.
Yeah, Like, I hesitate to give this a 2, but it's close to that. So it's 3, but it's close to a 2.
I'm going to give it a 3. Like, the pilot, I would have given it a 3.5 if we were doing, like, halves, but we're not.
Yeah.
This, I would say, is a solid 3 for me.
Yeah.
But that does mean, like, if, just in case you didn't listen last time, on the scale we do, like, 5 is, like, absolute favorites, 4 is great, 3 is still good, 2 is okay,
I'd
like,
say
some good moments.
Like, it's average but enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's good.
Yeah.
It's, like, average is good in this case, I think.
Yes.
And then 2 is, like, okay, like, some good moments, but not that memorable or that thrilling. And then a 1 is just, like, I don't like this episode at all.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a funny moment or two, but otherwise, like, just not an episode I'm a fan of. And I know you said you had an episode that you would put as a 1, and I'm not gonna, like, have you reveal that
I'm
yet.
actually, like, kind of rethinking that. It may just be a 2. We'll see. We'll see when we get back to that episode.
Yeah. But, like, I can't think of an episode that I would give as a 1.
Yeah.
Maybe some of season 4. Like, that's the only thing that comes to mind.
That reminded me of an inside joke among the cast that made me laugh.
Yeah.
Which we'll cover when we get to season 4 and later. But
yes. Yeah. Season 4, for those who haven't seen the show before, don't know much about behind the scenes, is infamous among fans for being, like, the lowest quality of the seasons because it's when Dan Harmon was actually fired from the show. And so they had these other showrunners who hadn't written for Community before come in and take over. At least I don't think they wrote for Community. Even if they had, like, they had a bunch of new writing staff that hadn't written for Community before, so it just wasn't quite the same until Dan Harmon came back for season 5 and 6.
Yeah. It was the somehow Palpatine returned of Community.
Yeah. It was like the gas leak year, they call it.
Yeah.
Which, that is one thing I do like about that they don't just, like, cart it off as, like, not canon. Like, they acknowledge, this season happened, but even in the show, they're like, that was a weird year.
They poke jokes at it,
Yeah. So, like, it's still a part of the Community timeline, and there is one moment, I will share it when we get to that episode. I personally do not consider that canon. And I hope that in the canon that it's just the effects of the gas leak. I'm not going to reveal that until the time comes, but there is one moment that I think like I refuse to acknowledge as legitimate because it ruins like jokes from earlier on.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I'll tell you after we stop recording.
Yeah, we'll see. All right.
But I won't reveal it until we get... Man, there's a lot of stuff we're not revealing until we get there. So hop along for the ride if you're still listening at this point.
We're doing our best to be spoiler free, but it's so hard because that's such a good show. We don't want to wait to talk about our favorite moments, but we have to.
I know. And like we've already spoiled some things, but it's not that big, I don't think.
They're not big plot moments. They're just funny parts that we found funny, which even if you know about it ahead of time, it's still funny. So
yeah, and at the same time, like most people listening to this are probably going to be familiar with the whole show anyway.
Yeah.
Or at least as far along as we are uploading these podcasts.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I have. So thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time when we review. Oh, what is it? What is the next episode? I don't remember.
I don't have it either.
Introduction to Film.
Yes. Oh, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yes. That one's a good one. I'm excited for that. That one might be the first 4. We'll see.
Yeah. There is a joke in that episode that makes me laugh every single time.
Nice. But that's all. So we will see you next time when we review and discuss Introduction to Film. See you then.
See you guys.
¿Dónde está la biblioteca? Me llamo T-Bone, la araña discoteca. Discoteca, muñeca, la biblioteca. Es un bigote grande, pero manteca. Manteca, bigote, gigante, pequeño. Cabeza es nieve, cerveza es bueno. Buenos días, me gustas papas frías. Bigote de la cabra, de Cameron Díaz. Yeah, boy. Yeah. What? It's 2009. Word.